Good morning, good morning. 2 minutes after 10 o'clock on this Groundhog Day. That poor little fur ball. Coming out to those bright lights, I would run back into my burrow as well. Totally understand. Actually, I would do that without the lights. I would just stay in the burrow. How are you guys doing? How'd you get through the weekend? Everything go all right? Good. Everyone's ready to thaw out. Well, I've got a mix of good and bad news on that whole thawing out idea. We'll cover that here in just a second. Hello, everyone. I'm wave meteorologist Brian Good. Welcome to SnowTALK on this February 2nd, 2026. Moving right along, right? Can't believe it's already Groundhog Day. I'm telling you, before you know it's going to be Easter, then it's Derby, and then 4th of July, then Halloween, and then we're putting the tree back up. It's a vicious cycle. All right. Don't want to overwhelm you. All right, we'll go one at a time. I know, one at a time. I get the meme. Okay, welcome everyone. A lot of familiar faces, some that are newbies on here. And again, you can chat on our social side of things, YouTube, Twitch, as well as X and Facebook. Otherwise, you can just enjoy being a lurker and watch from afar on our streaming channels and on the app itself. We appreciate all that watch and join in. Hello to Travis. Hello to Joel. Joe, I haven't a chance to look at the photos yet. I'll have to look at some from where you were from the weekend storm in that area. All right, let's get right into it. We'll start with the snowboard today. Where did that screen go? Oh, there it is. Here is the outlook as of today, and it has been trimmed. And it's an obvious reason. There's going to be a warmer pattern that will get established, but it comes with a big asterisk, so I'll explain. Tomorrow I'll set up on snow. Not very impressed with it, to be honest, guys. I think this is looking at it just a few hours of wet snow. As I told Tawana, just a lunchtime inconvenience into the early afternoon of wet snow to move through. It'll cause, I'm sure, some excitement because the flakes, with this being a wet snow with flakes, will be relatively large. Good growth zone for flakes to be fully formed. So instead of little crystals of snow, you're actually going to see the bigger flakes falling. So it'll be a pretty snow, but a wet snow on top of that. And then it's over. It has a very short duration in wave country. And then we got a chance to have a mix that will likely go quickly to snow showers. Those snow showers for Friday will be more of a very smaller flakes, little spears, if you will, as some Arctic air gets briefly entrenched in our pattern again. And then after that, I've cleared off the board. Cleared off the board for now until we get a better handle on the upper air pattern, which I'll explain coming up in just a smidge. Right now, it is 26 in Louisville, 28 in Hardinsburg, 26 in Corden. How low did you get this weekend? I think I dropped to 4 at my house. Was the coldest. That was Sunday morning, I believe, was the cold morning, but not above freezing. Wind chills, by the way, feel like 19 outside. Hey, you know, when the wind chills feel like 19 instead of 19 below, hey, we're doing something right. We're going the right direction. All right, positive news here. 22 feels like into Corden right now. So far, for officially Louisville, we are now 252 hours solidly below freezing. The record spot is like 408 hours. I can't remember what the spots below that into around the top 5. We could get close to that level if you want to go into a top 10, maybe. I don't think it really matters though, in that sense, unless you're going to be hitting that top spot. I don't think it's that noteworthy. Either way, this may fall as early as today. Yeah, I know. This may reset today. I don't know what to do with this poor graphic resetting that fast, but it may very well go back to 0. Will we start another streak down the road? Maybe. But we're on the second leg here of winter. So on the other leg here of winter, we get more of your wet snow scenarios. We don't get true Arctic attacks that can stick around for weeks on end like we have had at times. And obviously January is most of the target, but we even in December we had one, which is a little unusual. That really set the catalyst for the entire winter was December's weather. But January, actually fairly normal for us as far as what we went through. They're all elements that we tend to face. We used to face, let me correct myself. We used to face in January every year, and then we went through a long gap of nothing. So when we have a January that's back on track again, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Catch you off guard a little bit. February is a wild card month that tends to have more wet snow scenarios. You can get some Arctic attacks, don't get me wrong, but sometimes some of your biggest snow totals yet of the entire season are still to be had because of our environment and climate where we're at compared to the Gulf and the plains, and you get some warmer systems involved. February into March can be some exciting times. But as I've said before, you get into this second leg of winter. Wow, I love it because usually from here on out, any bigger snow ideas that were to come to light, I'm saying they are, but if they were, are short-lived. They don't stick around like the most recent has here. They're here for maybe 3 days and they're gone. They melt quickly and then we get back on track only to have another one come back into play again. And then sometimes you're going to get into some strong thunderstorm scenarios. You're going to run into severe weather that will end with snow on the back end. We've seen that before. Obviously, 2012 was a good example of that. So it gets a little more wonky for this second leg of winter. We are not done with the bigger snow ideas. They're going to be just much harder to see. These are the ones you really do have to wait until they get right up on you to have enough confidence versus systems far out approaching our area with an Arctic blast in play. Well, we know that's going to be a massive winter storm because how widespread the cold is. Now it's got to figure out moisture levels and tracking, yada, yada, yada. You get into February, March, you can still see that signal coming through, but if the temperature profile is off, it could be anywhere from a severe weather outbreak of thunderstorms to another round of snow. It could be either or. So you got to be really cautious. And you're going to notice on SnowTALK, been watching for years, SnowTALK, we do get a little more cautious on this second leg here of the outlooks, just because of that very idea. Unless we have confidence in the upper air pattern, you're not going to see much confidence on the weather side of things that can be produced out of that, if that makes sense. So some love this time, this section of SnowTALK. I do personally. I think it's a real fun setup into the coming weeks when you get into this phase of it compared to the first half can be, it's fun, don't get me wrong, but I'm also not a big fan of cold weather. I know it's an oxymoron for me, but it comes with it is the brutal cold for the first leg of winter there. All right, enough on that rant. Just want to explain where we're at now that we're in February. Here's a live look. A lot of clouds in the area right now. Yeah, still got the snow. Average snowpack is 3 to 4 inches. 3 officially at Ollie, 4 into Highview and Fern Creek, and not far from Moore High School is where the other measurement technically goes to at the Weather Service. So 3 to 4 is our average still in Jefferson County. Hasn't really moved much at all. I think we're over 5 days, maybe 6 days at that too, at that snowpack. Record on that one's like 17 days, maybe more than that. So that would be changed. Okay, so let me show you the current radar. The flurries this morning, yeah, it didn't really amount to much. It's a wave, vertical wave here of moisture, so kind of odd. We're so used to the blobs of flurries that move through. This one's just a squall line, if you will, of flurries. I know that doesn't make any sense, but just go with me. And it moved west-east over the area, just about all the way to the other side. So let's go into a wider view, and you can see that wave continue to move off toward Pennsylvania, producing maybe a minor amounts in some spots, but it's there's such a deep snowpack in this area of the country that would anybody even notice you get a half inch? Probably not. Now, if we had nothing on the ground, oh my goodness, yes, it would be very noticeable. But in these scenarios, these kind of like, yeah, whatever, go ahead and do your thing, just fly on by. Safe journeys. The rest of the country, obviously dealing with all that snow that's on the ground. Carolinas, yeah, they went through our pain, right, of either the dry slide impacting Atlanta, same in 2 parts of the Carolinas, even around Raleigh. Oh boy, saw those posts. It just goes to show you winter forecasting. You can have tons of experience with it. Every system is just a little different. You can't really use a historical text, and those SIPS analogs I just don't think are good at all. In these scenarios, they just don't. The weather doesn't go to that much of a historical repeating or rhyming, as we say. Weather doesn't repeat, it rhymes. Anyway, you got to be careful with those kind of analogs. You really just got to go with experience of what are the cautionary things to look out for and when a system's roll through your area. So when you have meteorologists that have been in your area for a long time, those are the ones to pay attention to. If somebody's relatively new, they probably don't know the area very well and are going and no fault of their own. They're just going by the data they're getting on modeling, and the modeling isn't always going to catch those little nuances that matter. And we're not alone. Again, they deal with that in the deep south. They deal with that in the mid-Atlantic and the Carolinas. The one place is probably highly confident all the time on everything is probably going to be the upstate or the UP of Michigan. That's about it. Everywhere else, it's a bit of a pain. But we still have our snowpack here. I think it's a little lower than these values are showing. These are estimates. But the general idea of where it is, I think that is fair. All right, let me get into the game plan in the short term because we've had the flurries move by. Look at the batch of clouds over the snowpack. This is acting as a bit of a blanket for us. So the numbers are not as cold this morning because of this little feature moving on by. And look in the bar right above where the clock is. You see it in the banner there? Yeah, that's the clock moving. So yeah, we've got a southwest wind. So we've got a warming wind on top of our snowpack, yes, but we also have the warming wind underneath a cloud bank. So yes, if we did have the sun out, it would be, excuse me, likely into the 40s this afternoon. But we're thinking that at least the 30s are going to be reachable as we head into later on this afternoon. My voice is not going to make it, I promise. As we head into this afternoon, that's where we run into problems with temperature forecast. But I think in general, if you are on the southern edge of that really deep snowpack, it's in Indiana, you have a good chance. This section here, I know I got a lot of lines, but this section here of wave country, which will be most of our Indiana county, so roughly Cincinnati to Seymour and Point South, that triangle. Better opportunity to get to about 32 to 35 today. So that will also allow for there to be a change in the pattern. Carson is sort of newer. No, Carson is not new. See, Carson grew up here. I'm talking about for those that are new to the climate and forecasting here. I'm not talking about new as far as job. That's different. My experience to the area. So I'll make sure I'm clear. Thank you for asking, Carrie, about it. I thought I made it clear, but maybe I could see why that'd be a little twisted. All right. So anyway, as we move along, this is going to move out. I don't think we're going to get much in the way of sun here today. This is a very thick canopy of clouds, but still, having said that, the southwest wind, with us having a faster start to the thermometer today, could very well get us knocked out of that sub-zero count. We'll monitor that with with eagerness throughout the rest of the afternoon. All right, let me show you one of the higher res models. How does this setup for tomorrow work out? Well, the big issue would be whether or not it would phase or not, become a bigger system, not more juice to it, yada, yada, yada. Well, we don't see a phase with this anymore. This is just mainly a clipper now. The northern branch feature is winning out. The southern part of this is going to hang off into the Baja area. It's not rolling out. So because of that, we don't have to worry about the warm nose. All right, enough of the warm noses. My goodness. We don't have to worry about that constant flow over our heads. Now this is all going to be about another one of our lovely friends, dynamic cooling. Yeah, this is where the rate of precipitation will determine if you stay rain or if you just quickly flip over to snow. And we're thinking based on the track of the low, if you are very close to I-64 and north, you're likely going to be in that zone where there's going to be a good little thumping there that'll happen. But let me stress, the average I counted for anyone to get to that accumulating snow level was a little over 90 minutes. And it's over. So this is a very short duration event. Secondly, this is a daytime snow. Now, granted, the sun angle is not very high yet, but from here on out, we're going to be talking about that more and more because now we got to get back to the whole narrative. Daytime snow works against you. Nighttime snow works in your favor because just the energy from the sun, just as the same as the sun hitting on a very frigid day can still activate the salt on roadways. Same idea. The radiation from the sun, whether the clouds are there or not, certainly can have an impact on how the snow plays out too. So this is going to be a wet snow that'll move on by. Tomorrow morning's commute, I don't see any issues. So maybe a normal day of school looks fair. Everyone back on track for the third day of February. We get toward, let's see, let me advance the clock to about, we'll move it to late morning. And this is where we start to run into the first little spoke. And it will have this look to it because I've seen this on several radar animations. It'll have a little hook that'll be aimed out towards Cincinnati. This is why I think some of the totals in Cincinnati may be a little higher than everywhere else, just because of this very much a kickstart to the snow will be in southeast Indiana, far northern Kentucky, out of our area. But little hook will get you guys started right away on starting to add on to the snow. Meanwhile, for the rest of wave country in Louisville, well, we're still kind of no man's land here. We're not quite saturated yet. We need the higher rates. Remember, we may even, in fact, be very close to freezing at this point in the afternoon, probably 32, 33, maybe 34 along the river, and certainly in the mid to upper 30s in our southern counties, could even touch 40 tomorrow. So you're going to wake up, or we're going to be doing the blog tomorrow, and you're going to be like, wait a minute, it's 34 degrees outside. How's this going to happen? This is a bust. Well, technically, I would agree with you. Yes, it'd be a bust if it wasn't for the idea for the rate. But we got to get the rate. If we don't get the rate, then yeah, it would be a complete bust. And the rate is going to be coming from the back side of the low itself that moves over us roughly mid-afternoon. So let me advance this. There it is at 3 o'clock. It has arrived. Now we filled in the radar quickly, and it wanted to do rain. It may start as rain for only 30 minutes, but once the rates take over, it is still cold above our head. It'll quickly flip that over to big wet flakes that will be coming down, and will drop below the freezing mark, probably about 31 initially. It will start to accumulate, mainly slushy on roadways. Treated roads have been so heavily treated. The treatment will work great in this environment. That's good. They may have to go straight into plowing and instead of salting because it will become slushy quickly. And if you're south of really Bullitt County, it gets a little iffy on whether or not your rate's going to be strong enough to flip your atmosphere down to the point of going to snow. You may get close, but you may end up staying at the rain level. Once again, got to give a buffer of about 2 counties on whether or not that's in Louisville or not. As always the case, the line is near us. I can't control that, but that's what it is. But wherever that thumping is, that's where you get your biggest of flakes, accumulating snow, a couple of quick inches will fall. And then as we get into about 4 to 5 o'clock, it's already out of here. It's gone. And could even end as freezing drizzle on top of that. Now, I don't think it's going to be enough to cause major icing concerns, but we do lose the growth ability, the DGZ in the atmosphere. We do lose that at the end of the rate. So this is purely rate driven that I'm referring to here. Once the rate is at its heaviest for about, I'm going to be fair and say about 3 hours. I don't think it's going to be that long, but in a roughly 3-hour window, the rate is heavy enough to go over to a burst of heavier snow. They can accumulate a couple of inches. Some you could get up to 3. up 71, closer to Cincinnati. That's fair. But you're also going to get that little hook head start compared to the rest of us. So totals should be higher in general in Cincinnati than will be in Louisville. And if you're south of Louisville, I don't know if your rate will be heavy enough to get you out of the rain drops. You may get stuck. You may get some hints every once in a while. It may have rain falling and you get the big flakes every once in a while kind of mixed in with the rain, like, oh, it's trying so hard. And then suddenly the rain gets a little lighter and then the big flakes just stop. Again, it's that close. Rate is key on this, but very short duration. This is really not a big ordeal, guys. It really isn't. We got an alert day out because the travel impacts are mainly slush, but as far as this being 2 feet of snow and shutting the city down, this is not one to do that. Our other concern obviously would be one of timing. Schools letting out, everyone, especially the earlier dismissals that head out. Maybe you have earlier shifts from work that are getting out. That could be a little bit more messy because there's no doubt with the bigger flakes falling, everyone's going to have a little bit more of a mental reaction time. And I don't want you to panic. Just take it slow like we have been the past 20,000 years, it seems like. Also known as January. Okay, that moves out of here. We do get colder for a day, so we'll stay likely below freezing initially, and then we'll work our way back up to above freezing ahead of the next wave, which will be on Friday. And that's the one I think will start as a mix, and that may end as snow at some point for the weekend, especially Friday night, but we'll be on the eastern side of an Arctic blast for that one there. All right, here is the snow map. This is going to be a very challenging one on really trying to figure out the cutoff point. We got a dusting listed here, but I really think it's going to be a couple of inches of snow, maybe a few inches around Cincinnati, but a couple of inches. And 71, southern Indiana, right at the point dynamic cooling takes over. That's why we don't have it drawn all the way back into the Wabash, is that it doesn't, the low itself, when it moves in, it doesn't reach the point of having a max rainfall rate or precipitation rate, the dynamic cooling rate. It doesn't get going until it crosses I-65. And that is when we start the potential for 1 to 2 inches to begin to take place. West of that, not there yet. But once it crosses right at the point of I-65, boom, it gets to that point and we'll hold on to it for about 3 or 4 hours, then eases a bit more to the east. Could there be a 3-inch total in that mess there? Possibly. It's too hard to draw on a map. But there could be, a couple, 3, 3.5, even a 4-inch near Cincinnati, northern Kentucky. That's possible. I mean, these snowflakes will be big, and it will be coming down fairly hard. But Louisville, again, is going to be right on the edge of that. Dynamic cooling systems in Louisville, if I had to bet, we don't do well with that here, I'll be honest, snow lovers in Louisville. Dynamic cooling setups, I've seen it, Fern Creek, Prospect, J-Town. They usually can get the thumping of snow, but you get toward parts of Fern Creek, Highview, certainly around the airport, PRP and Valley Station. Usually I see the odds of that happening go lower. Just based on the flow going into the city. It's a southwest flow. So whenever the southwest flow feeds into the system like that, your heaviest of snow, your best potential to get accumulating snow usually is going to be on the other side or downstream from the city of Louisville. So it's usually our north, northeast, and east sides. So that's my gut feeling right now based on what I've seen and happened before on dynamic cooling events. So Jefferson County, we could really split up a lot. But if you are in, again, PRP, you will likely not get as much as, say, Prospect will be. What is PRP? PRP, Pleasure Ridge Park, one of our suburbs in the southwest side of Jefferson County. Adam, I know you're in Bloomington. All right, does that make sense? Everyone, type 8. Type 8 if you're good. I want to make sure this is clear for everybody on, wow, this one's a little weird, a little wonky. It's got little nuances, right? We're going to be above freezing as it arrives. We got to figure out the rate that it's going to be falling. And also, since the rate eases or dials back, it's pretty much over. And salt is going to work really good. So if you're going to be leaving at all lunchtime tomorrow downtown, through about 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, that's the window you may be driving through this, but again, it'd be more of a slushy mess. If you're out on the roads before then, you're in good shape. If you're going to wait until this is over with, it may actually be back to rain or maybe a freeze and drizzle, but even that, I don't think it's going to be too alarming. Okay, good. All right, let me show you the hourly on that, by the way, and we'll put it as that spike, again, roughly 12 to 4, somewhere around there. that it moves in and out. Got a buffer on either end for some light precipitation, but I really think anything in the morning probably actually be drizzle and raindrop form. That one we do need to watch temperature. Yes, there's always some questions of the snowpack and how will that influence all of this. True, and that's fair. But in this particular case, it's not so much about the ground as it is above our head. And we have colder air above our head, but we got to get that rate to pick up because warmer air is above us at times tomorrow in the layer that counts. So we need to cool the air down in order to do that. You've got to just increase the precipitation rate. That's the easiest way for the atmosphere to compensate in this situation. So you got to have that rate. And if you don't have that rate, this is pretty much a nothing burger. All right, it moves out. But would they issue an advisory for this? I saw someone asked. Possibly, just because of the slushy conditions and the visibility. But as far as major impacts, pretty limited. And if they put one out, I would say it's going to be Southeast Indiana, maybe around Louisville, but certainly the 71 corridor, and maybe 64 east to Lexington. That'll be the area. So the northeast pie of wave country. All right, we do get colder, not extremely cold. In fact, it's worth noting, I don't see any type of below zero stuff. I've looked at all the data right now. Within our forecast range, there's no below zero wind chills. There is no actual below zero numbers. I would be surprised if we got those back again. It would take one heck of an Arctic blast to get us back to that. Not ruling it out. Just don't see any sign of it. So maybe we are on the other side of the hump on that threat anyway. Now it's just an issue of these fun, wet winter storms that play in, but also more of a thunderstorm threat as we go down the road. All right, here is one more Arctic push for the weekend. This one's very east based. All right, so this is going to be more for West Virginia and Pennsylvania. It'll graze our area, but we'll be on the tail of that, so it may allow for some constant snow showers again to come in from the lakes, much more like a snow globe type of effect. So Friday into Saturday should drop below freezing. Friday daytime, probably not. I think Friday may even hit 40 on Friday. But Friday night will quickly drop back down in the teens and stay in the 20s on Saturday. And if we got any light snow showers, yeah, they could cause some minor accumulations in the area. And any areas that have had some snow melt and melting in general are going to refreeze again. So yes, be careful. That's going to be a battle we're going to be facing for a long time. All these snow mountains in the area that got to melt off now, they'll be refreezing every single night. So we'll be talking about that every single day. After that, we get into a warmer scenario, a little bit of Cape showing up there in Texas, some thunderstorms. Hello. And that's what we're going to notice. The pattern does relax a bit. We get into a more east-west storm track. So now we're back to certainly rain at the start of these systems and going over to snow. Now the gap out of this Arctic blast this weekend, the gap before we get another system that you see here on the 11th looks long enough. Remember, spacing counts, and if they are too close together, you can run into an ice storm scenario before you can switch the pattern back to a warmer one. Well, there looks to be enough of a gap that we will be coming out of the really cold stuff to where when we get the next system rolling in, not as worried now of there being an ice storm scenario. If the gap gets faster, it's different, but right now they look spaced out enough that we should just go right into rain. And yes, warmer pattern and the snowpack will be on its way out. We don't want a scenario, though, with an active storm track coming over not only our snowpack, but the one in Pennsylvania, the one upstate New York, into Ohio. We don't want that because we're going to switch the gear on all this, and we're going to go into a flooding scenario. High water content, the rivers will be out of their banks. That will just set the stage for another flooded spring setup this season. So we really don't want too much heavy rain over the snowpack to melt it off, but that is another issue that we'll be watching carefully as we try to thaw here down the road and get into at least near Valentine's Day. The snow goes back to where you would normally expect it this time of year, a Midwestern snow and maybe some rain and thunder on the southern side. I know you're going to ask, are we done with winter at this point? No, there is still a stratospheric warming event that is taking place for the end portion here of February. The signal on that is still strong, but it's delayed. So if I had to guess, we would not see or feel the impact of that until March, early March. At that point, yes, higher sun angle, get into that time of the year, but it could also mean to allow for some excitement for a lot of bigger wet snow systems to get involved. So is winter over? It is far from over. It's just going to change its look and tune a little bit as far as impacts go. Less of the, you're going to get frozen in for weeks and weeks on icy roads, can't get anywhere, to more of your bigger, heavy, wet snows that stick to everything in the trees and are gone in a few days. That's the kind of thing we're going to start going into. And there may be some thunderstorms thrown in the mix as well. Isn't that some fun? Oh boy. All right. Here is the matrix, by the way. Yeah, I can tell. It's even the matrix is tamed down a bit, right? The strongest the signal is going to be for tomorrow. Relatively weak on the amounts, but pretty good agreement in our area of getting and accumulating snow in our area. And then after that, there's the Friday snow showers. Yeah, I'm not very excited on that. And there's some hints down the road. You know, we'll get a new long-term data tomorrow, and we'll see what it does with March. But you can definitely tell there is a bit of a relaxation that happens here. Maybe we can get through Valentine's Day without any, I want to say, winter weather drama, because I hope we don't get thunderstorm drama. But right now, we'll just say, hope without any drama at all. Everyone needs a nice, just loving holiday. Wouldn't that be nice? We'll see. All right, let me get right into your 10-day and get some of your questions you got before I roll it out here. All right, we're going to go with, again, 35 today. Again, that southwest wind. And there's the problem tomorrow, those temperatures being in the 30s. The dynamic cooling is key on getting that to drop to allow the snow around lunch tomorrow. I'll be on tomorrow, so we'll watch that and let you know in real time here on the blog how well on track we are for that. So make sure to watch the blog tomorrow. It's going to be a crucial blog update tomorrow on that snow. And then you see we do drop a bit, setting the stage for that clipper, especially as we head into Friday and Saturday. And then after that, hey, got a 50 that is showing up down the road. As I joked on my other post, I wonder who's going to wear shorts. Somebody's going to. Everyone good? All right. Snow lovers, hope you're not like confused at all or sad. Don't be sad. There is still a lot more to go of fun and games. Now it gets into just a whole other game. I would say January is relatively easy to predict long term. The pattern, the pieces were all there. When you got Arctic cold like that, the polar vortex out of its home base, it's a lot easier to get an idea of how winter storms will evolve. Now we got to go into issues with temperature, dynamic cooling, whether it be heavy rain involved in some of these, and we're not going to really get a good handle on them until 2 to 3 days out instead of 7 to 14 days out. Oh boy, that's going to be stressful. But I love this time of the year too at the same time. It really can be exciting. So we'll leave it at that. Any travel issues, Austin says, for Wednesday morning? Not at this point, unless we have a lot of melting that happened during the day from some of the rainy areas on this little clipper coming through here on Tuesday, Austin. Otherwise, treated roads, again, the salt is going to work great. I don't think it's going to be too much of a heavy rain to wash off, but they're going to be adding on more salt regardless to try to keep up with that. It's not really a heavy rain scenario. It's just going to be wet, but we're hoping they'll keep adding more treatment on to balance that out. But as always, I can never say never, especially down to 20, bridges and overpasses. Those will be your trouble areas for Wednesday. And we'll look closer at that tomorrow afternoon and see if that is going to be more of an issue for Wednesday or not. But you're on the right track of thinking there, Austin. All right, everyone, take care. We'll see you all coming up on midday at 11 a.m. All right, take care, guys. Stay warm.